BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a couple quick announcements before we begin. The first thing I would like to say is a big thank you to everybody who was checking out our discussions on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. We did a two-part segment about that. Big thank you to everybody who listened and left some excellent comments. And the next thing to say is that we will be doing the next phase of our series on the Israeli Mossad coming out tomorrow to anybody who is listening to these things live. And if you're listening to this in the future, we have a multi-part series on the Israeli Mossad, looking at some theories that people are sharing about possible Mossad activities, as well as being connected to some other major worldly events. The next one will be coming out tomorrow, and you can check out that at any time in the future. And finally, I would also like to say that we're going to be talking about the Casey Anthony trial and the death of Caylee Marie Anthony today in this upload. But in the description box, we have one of the things from our Casey Anthony playlist. I'm not including the whole playlist in the description box, but you can also find that here on Black Box Online Radio. What we have instead is just one of the uploads that I wanted to include because it's about the innocence theory. Was Casey Anthony innocent? And there are some, we explore the possibility. I don't personally believe that, but, someone has, brought this to our attention, and you'll find out all about that. And we'll mention a few things about the Casey Anthony innocence theory. Was there any possibility that she did not murder her daughter? And I mean, this is the way we're introducing the case, but this is a case that needs no introduction. If you've found yourself on this far off corner of YouTube, I'm sure you know who Casey Anthony is. One of the most famous trials of the past 15 years, and this is being recorded in the wonderful year of 2020. Now, I think that we are going to have a lot of things to say about this, but first and foremost, I would like to give a shout out to whoever is behind Film Rise Media. I found this new great place to find movies and TV. It must be rather famous, but anyway, there was Film Rise Media. It has a couple different YouTube channels, and Film Rise Movies was the channel where I saw the documentary Inside the Caylee Anthony Case. And they also have a different channel called Film Rise Television if anybody wants free movies and TV that they can watch on YouTube. Once again, Inside the Caylee Anthony Case. That's a documentary available on Film Rise Movies. And to help us out with our discussion here, we're going to be jumping over to the ABC News timeline. First and foremost, let's hear some things about Casey Anthony and Caylee Anthony. June 15th, 2008. Casey claims to have seen Caylee for the last time. 15 days later, on June 30th of 2008, Casey Anthony's car was towed, and that, of course, is the very famous white Pontiac. Now, so one of the things, just as I read this off, one of the things that just comes to memory is, for some reason, I think that her brother may have been, the owner of that car, but I don't even want to talk about hazy memories too much. July 15th of 2008, that is another 15 days later, from June 30th to July 15th, Caylee Anthony was reported missing. And this, of course, was the very famous thing. This is the reason why we know about Casey Anthony. Yes, of course, it was a murder investigation, and she became the prime suspect in the murder of her daughter, Caylee Marie Anthony, but also because of the fact that she did not report her daughter missing for 31 days. July 15th, 2008, Caylee Anthony is reported missing. And on July 16th of 2008, Casey Anthony was arrested, and ABC News has a little segment that we will read right here. Casey told police that she left Caylee at the apartment of a babysitter named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, and that both were missing when she returned. Police found, among other discrepancies with her story, that the apartment had been vacant for more than 140 days. Casey Anthony was arrested and charged with child neglect. And there's a big thing to say about the neglect issue in a second. July 22nd, 2008, new revelations are at the bond hearing. July 22nd as well, Casey Anthony was called a person of interest in the death of Caylee Anthony. July 24th, grandmother reports a sighting of missing Caylee, and that, of course, is Cindy Anthony, and George would be the grandfather. August 9th, 2008, Caylee's third birthday. The birthday came and went, and there were no signs of the missing child. ABC News just wanted to include that. August 17th, 2008, bounty hunters offer bonds. August 21st, Casey Anthony was out of jail. August 30th of 2008, Casey Anthony returned to jail. And the note on this one is Casey Anthony was taken into custody on new charges, including petty theft. September 1st, 2008. The police said they believe Caylee Anthony is not alive. September 5th, 2008. Casey Anthony was released from jail. September 25th, 2008, the babysitter files a lawsuit. And this is where a woman whose real name was Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez reportedly, she filed the lawsuit because she was claiming defamation, saying that Casey Anthony was using her name, even though, she had no connection to Casey Anthony. It was just a coincidence. September 29th, 2008, Casey Anthony returned to jail. October 2nd, Casey Anthony named a suspect in her daughter's disappearance. October 14th, Casey Anthony was charged with first-degree murder. Also on October 14th, chloroform was found in Casey Anthony's car as well as decomposition. December 5th, 2008, Casey Anthony visitation videos were recorded. And the big one, December 11th, 2008, a skull was found near the Anthony home. Skeletal remains of a young child were found about a half-mile from the Anthony residence. December 12th, 2008, police are somewhat confident it is Caylee. December 16th, the defense team is not allowed to access the crime scene during the emergency hearing. December 19th, Caylee is confirmed dead. January 13th, tipster denies involvement in the case, and Ray Kronk, the utility worker who found Caylee's remains, dismissed suggestions that he was somehow involved, and of course, he would go on to be cleared later. Roy Kronk, R-O-Y, Roy Kronk. On January 23rd, 2009, George Anthony leaves the suicide note. Police discovered that the grandfather of Caylee Anthony was possibly under the influence of medication and alcohol when he left the suicide note in the hotel. Police also discovered that the suicide note was 5 pages and that Anthony had penned it while in the hotel. April 13th, 2009, prosecutors announced the plan that they want to seek the death penalty for Casey Anthony. June 16th was the 1-year anniversary. Okay, now, let's talk about some of the material that they put forward in this documentary inside the Caylee Anthony special. This was one that really wanted to share the perspective of Dr. G. Her first name is Jan, and she is the medical examiner who examined Casey Anthony's remains, and she was one that really wanted to put forward the case that she did indeed believe it was a homicide, but that was more of a belief rather than what exactly the evidence would put forward. She says it as a concluding note, like one of the final lines of the episode. She says that she believes it was a homicide. Some of the big reasons why they were unable to say that this was a homicide was simply the time. As you heard in the timeline, 6 months. It was not until December that they were able to find the remains, and Casey, of course, would have gone missing around June, and after that amount of time, he was unable to determine anything about the cause of death. And another thing that Dr. G shared in this episode is that chloroform only stays in the body, like in a decomposing body. It's not weeks, it's not months, days. They would have had to have found Caylee's remains within days to know if there had been any chloroform. And of course, the defense attorneys, Jose Baez, Cheney Mason, they were all on top of this, saying that there were numerous products in the Anthony household that would have had the chemical components that would have appeared to be like chloroform, or that chloroform can be found in your home. It's not only the sleeping agent, but I don't really think we need to give too much credit to Jose Baez and Cheney Mason. When it comes to Jose Baez, all I will say about him is I think that he did very well in the Casey Anthony trial. I don't like him. Of course, I don't agree with what he was saying. Nobody agrees with what he's saying. It's just that as a defense attorney, he did succeed. He accomplished what he set out to accomplish. And there's also the American Crime Story on O.J. Simpson, like the one with Cuba Gooding Jr., where he's playing O.J. The People versus O.J. Simpson is what I meant to say. It's called, I think it's officially American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson. But that is, of course, a dramatization. But they're showing the jurors in that one. And they're saying that, oh, yes, I believe that O.J. is guilty, but what does the evidence say? And I really noticed that a lot of the people who are talking about the Casey Anthony trial were saying a lot of very similar things about this particular case. They're like, yes, of course, we believe that she is guilty, but once again, what does the evidence say? And if you'd like to hear some things about Casey Anthony being innocent and a possible theory in that, you can click on the link in the description box here. But to expand upon some things that were shared in and in this episode from Film Rise Movies, where I watched it anyway. That wasn't the original creation of it. But I would like to say just that the most important thing is that, I mean, like when I say important, these are the things that I really learned for the first time, that there were three different wraps of the duct tape going around Caylee, or the duct tape was done in three layers on Caylee Anthony's mouth, and then the heart-shaped sticker was placed there. And Dr. G, the medical examiner, is saying something that I just thought from the beginning. If this were an accident, what is the plausible explanation for duct tape to be on a child's mouth? And in that Innocence upload, not to give away too much from that one, but one of the things is just Casey found Caylee dead in the pool, tried to perform CPR on her, and she used duct tape to hold her mouth open. I don't accept that at all, but that is one explanation. But what Jose Baez put forward as something that even sounds just slightly more plausible, not truly plausible, but just slightly more plausible than what we just laid out, is that the duct tape was actually on the trash bag that was used to conceal Caylee's remains, and then the duct tape got onto her face. I would say, though, that one of the big points that they were unable to, well, convict her on is that with the duct tape that was placed over on Caylee Anthony, once again, three times it was crossing over some area of her lower face. And that's all that the medical examinations were able to determine. Some area over her lower face. It's like they weren't able to completely say, like, it's covering her nose, it's covering her mouth, just some area of the lower jaw region. And also, one of the new points that I had heard for the first time, I mean, there's a lot of information out in these documentaries and episodes and all over the internet, is that it's most likely that animals had also tampered with Caylee's remains, that she had been dug up and moved around from some type of animal had moved Caylee's remains in some way, which could have also jeopardized the prosecution's claims, as well as tampered with some of the evidence in an unintentional way. Of course, these are just wild animals going through the woods. But the thing to say about that is that Caylee's hair was found in the duct tape. And another point that they did bring up is that the lower jaw will fall off during decomposition. The jaw is a very heavy bone, comparatively speaking, and Caylee's jaw was stayed relatively in place because of that duct tape. So I think Jose Baez's statement is mostly ludicrous. However, I mean, as they say very famously about Jose Baez, he used the tactic of, if you cannot convince, you confuse, and that, before you think that that's crazy, it seemed to have worked. So the other things, though, that I thought were very valuable is that they were talking about how a point that was held up is that the medical examiners did not look inside of Caylee Anthony's skull to determine was there any type of thing that could have been done, any type of internal damage. And the reason that was provided is just the bones were completely dry. All of the interior parts of Caylee Anthony's head had already decomposed to a point in which there was nothing there but just the dirt from the earth. And actually, when Dr. Werner Spitz, whom I believe was also featured in the special on Burke Ramsey that got CBS News into trouble, or CBS, the network, into trouble. CBS has a lot of issues going on thanks to a certain executive from there, but I believe he was also featured in that special. He tried to open Caylee Anthony's skull, and the bones fell apart. And this is one of the reasons why Dr. G said that they did not attempt to do that during her examination, because the bones would fall apart as well. So it really just goes to show you, it's the same old statement, that so much time had passed that the evidence had been lost. We saw this very clearly in the case of Brooke Schuyler Richardson, and I believe the name of her child was baby Annabelle, who passed away, and she was found buried in the backyard. It's almost the same case where you hear that they could not determine the cause of death. Decomposition had set in to such a great extent that it could not be determined. But some of the points that the medical examiners did want to put forward is that Caylee Anthony did not have signs of trauma. There were not signs of broken bones. There weren't signs of beatings or blunt force. These things were not present. And somebody sent me this last year when we were talking about the Casey Anthony trial a lot more on this channel. Somebody sent me a video from Marsha Clark Investigates. I didn't even know that Marsha Clark, the former prosecutor from the O.J. Simpson trial, had this show, Marsha Clark Investigates. And I watched that one, and we did one response because the case that she was putting forward is there shouldn't be broken bones because Caylee Anthony was killed from foolproof suffocation, that the duct tape was placed over her mouth and nose, and that she had been sedated in some way. This episode that I was just going through now, this documentary episode, Inside the Death of Caylee Anthony, was really trying to put forward the valuable statement that, I mean, it's just something that you've heard a million times. They could not determine if she had had any drugs in her system because we're talking 6 months after she most likely passed away. All of the evidence had been destroyed because of natural causes and decomposition, the elements. All of those things were unable to determine. But what Marsha Clark Investigates was making the strong case is that Caylee had been sedated in some way. Perhaps it could have been chloroform. Perhaps it could have even been a different type of sedative. And this is another point that they even mentioned in Inside the Death of Caylee Anthony. They wanted to put forward the case that it could have been a different sedative. I mean, think about all the explanations we've heard of from chloroform, let alone the fact that Cindy Anthony came forward and said that the search on Casey Anthony's computer was made by her about chloroform. She was reading up on chlorophyll, and then she just hit the search for chloroform. And you really got to think twice about when you're making Google searches and you search for the wrong thing. Is this ever going to come back in this type of fashion? And first and foremost, a lot of people simply do not find the grandparents very credible. We're talking about Cindy and George Anthony. And as you heard there, George Anthony would become both a villain and an anti-hero in this case, or he would just be somebody that would receive intense media scrutinization, being accused of things like molestation. And you heard there, people are sharing some things about him being suicidal, as well as him being the person who would have disposed of Caylee Anthony's remains. He was also accused of that by none other than the defense team. Some other points that were mentioned in the death of Caylee Marie Anthony, or Inside the Death of Caylee Marie Anthony, this episode that is available on FilmRise, is that Casey Anthony's behavior after her daughter had not only disappeared, but even after learning that she was dead or learning that she was learning all the information as it came out, was horribly inconsistent with that of a grieving mother. And a lot of people, including Geraldo Rivera, were trying to put forward the case that Casey Anthony had simply been the victim of intense abuse throughout her life, and that she had simply just snapped. You know, she the losing Caylee Anthony was just another nail in the coffin for Casey Anthony. So she simply snapped, and that's why she resorted to partying, and that's why she resorted to participating in the hot body contest and getting the tattoo. And in the Innocence episode, where we talk about how, I mean, once again, it's not my original theory. Somebody, once again, sent that to me, and they wanted, it shared here on the channel, about how Casey Anthony found Caylee dead in the pool, and then she tried to revive her via CPR, and then she put the body into the trunk, and that's why there is the decomposition signs. She drove around, simply just not knowing what to do, and then she got the tattoo that says Bella Vita, beautiful life, as a memorial to Caylee Anthony. But that is still contingent upon some other things about Casey's mental state being greatly hampered by years of abuse and years of unhealed trauma. So then she simply had a breaking point. Do I accept that? No, absolutely not. What truly happened to Caylee Anthony, it's a mystery, and perhaps only Casey Anthony knows. Other than that, in the third part of our playlist on Casey Anthony, we did mention Cindy Anthony's theory, and it's, I believe, on Black Box Online Radio, you can find it under Casey Anthony Parents Theory, I believe is the title of it. And that talks about how some way, somehow, Caylee Anthony passed away because Casey Anthony had experienced seizures and blackouts, and this is something that Jose Baez deliberately withheld from the media. And Cindy Anthony noticed that Casey Anthony would even just lose her memory for about 45 minutes after a seizure or a blackout, and she believes that in some way, some accident happened to Caylee after Casey Anthony blacked out, and after she blacked out from one of her seizures, and she did something to Caylee Anthony without knowing it. I mean, I think that only Casey Anthony will know the truth. It does appear that she is a stone cold sociopath or a born psychopath in some way. Absolutely no humanity seems to be somewhat present. But what do you think about all of this? Okay, you've heard some things that we've mentioned. I mean, this was a pretty good episode that I watched here, this little mini documentary on Film Rise movies. Once again, it's called Inside the Death of Caylee Anthony, and we're just sharing some of the info in it. I think it's very valuable to hear about the 3 strands of duct tape. It's very valuable to hear about the internal organs of Caylee Anthony and how they were decomposed, and just medical examiners sharing how the science functions. But what do you think? If there's anything that you have to say at all about this case, please drop your ideas in the comment section below. What about the timeline? Does anything in that stand out as bizarre or abnormal to you? I want to hear your answers to any of these questions, and please drop them in the comments section below. And please look out for our discussions on the Israeli Mossad coming out tomorrow. And to anyone in the future, we have that series on the Israeli Mossad. Please feel free to find it here on Black Box Online Radio. And you can always hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. That's all for me now. Until next time.